education sector, a lot of that working with early stage founders. I've probably taught something like 3,500 early stage founders like you guys, run startup accelerators, and co-founded a couple of businesses myself. I love this stuff and really pleased to be here with you guys this morning. Howard?
Good morning all. My name's Howard Duffy. I'm also one of the facilitators on today's call and with the programme. Yeah, similar to Ed, my background is very much around enterprise and entrepreneurship within higher education. Also, I've been a founder myself and support and mentor young founders getting started and help them take from ideation through to seed rounds, and supported people when trying to build up boards. So yeah, very excited about being here today and keen to everyone to throw out questions and see and get as much out of today as possible. And also we're going for the congratulations getting through to the semi-final.
Huge congrats everyone. That means you are literally in the top 20% of an extremely competitive application process. We know from the team that the standard was super high, so you can give yourselves a big pat on the back to make it this far. I've also just written in the chat that we'd love to hear where you guys are joining from. We had one session where there were about 13 different countries represented, so let's see what that figure looks like today. So Yanis is in Southampton, represent. I'm from the South Coast, so I know Southampton very well. Battersea, Greenwich, South Kensington, Malta, some international. Felicia, welcome. Akash, Swansea, Bethnal Green. Awesome. Poland, nice. So a good spread across London and also more broadly across Europe, which is great to see. And so this morning, we're obviously online in lots of different locations, and Howard and I would like to make this as interactive as possible. So the format is we are going to do some talking and explanation about kind of top tips around how to structure and deliver really effective pitches. And then in the second half of the workshop, we want to hand over to you guys to first of all draft your kind of version 1 of your pitch, and then we're going to break out into breakout rooms, and you can actually pitch to your peers and get feedback on your pitch. So really today is about imperfection, getting a scrappy first version of your pitch together and then testing it as much as possible, and you will be very surprised at how much feedback, how much you can learn from the feedback you get and how much that improves your pitch. Along the way, as ever in this kind of teams-based environment, it can be, important to get as much, feedback and engagement as possible. So you will have questions, and we know that in the online environment, it's maybe a little bit harder to ask questions than putting your hand up in a workshop. Please ask questions throughout. Either me or Howard, whoever's not speaking, will be checking in on the chat to see questions come through. But also, really even nicer, you can unmute yourself and jump in. So I think on Teams, you can put like a hand up symbol. So if you put a hand up on Teams, we'll stop periodically and answer your questions, because now is your chance, right? Okay, hope that makes sense. Right, we are going to jump into some slides. If I can get Teams working. Can anyone not see my slides? Unmute and let me know. Just loading up. Okay, can anyone not see these slides? I will take that as a no. Good stuff. Okay, so to think about what we're going to cover today, first of all, we're going to look at effective content structure, what to contain within your pitch. Second, about confident body language and delivery. And third, and most important, as I said, to actually practice your pitch and get feedback from your peers. Before we go any further, we'd love to hear from you guys. How many of you have presented something in the past? It might be an idea, it might be a startup, but it might also be a piece of research or a talk that you've given in public. Write in the chat what experience you have, what you might have shared in the past, or if you have no experience of that, you can just say, no, this is the first time I'm doing it. Let's have a look. So Richard spoke at a conference. Felicia has spoken at a couple of conferences. Susanna at Pitch at Enterprise Challenge. Edan, a couple of previous competitions. Steph, video pitch. So there is a variety of levels of experience in the room. And the first thing we'd say is that no one is born good at public speaking. Sometimes there's a sense that some people are good at it and some people just don't have, you know, those skills. I'm sure Howard would have endorsed this too. I was so shy and unconfident speaking in public. And now, you know, I do tons of teaching, I've done tons of startup pitching, and I can only do it because I've practiced a lot. I have practiced a lot in front of people and got feedback on what I'm doing. Howard, is there anything you would add to that from your own experience?
Absolutely is. And people always say, don't believe it is. I used to not be able to present to a small room of people, and I've now given presentation to a couple of thousand people. And it really evolves and everyone finds your own style, but it is practicing, taking on advice, seeing how you can get better, but also just having that confidence and understanding that everyone has different ways. You will deliver it differently to someone else, but it's just practicing and getting to know that. And really just over time, it'll evolve, but just being confident. You're the experts when talking about something to really deliver things with passion, and you will believe that you can be and will get better as a public speaker.
Okay, so an important question for you guys. What format of pitch do you need to put together, and when is the deadline?
This is a question, and we need guys to people to speak, or if you don't want to speak, you can put it into the chat, but bit of a give and take here, guys.
Okay, Omar, 23rd of March video, yes. Specifically 11:59 on the 23rd of March. Get that etched into the back of your hand or on a piece of paper or in your Google calendars, and make sure you remember that. Even more important is that process starts today. All too often, and I've definitely done this myself, we start writing that pitch a day before, and this is an iterative process. Take as much time over the next week or 8 days to build and improve on your pitch. And related to that, what's the format? What's the format of the pitch? How long? What should it look like? Akash, 2-minute pitch video, yes. And what kind of video are you creating?
No slides, just talking. That's
Ariel, yeah?
Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. Jamie Wade, landscape. We would almost always recommend doing this landscape because whenever you do a vertical video, it can create all sorts of weird effects on screen. Anything else?
I'm guessing it's a good opportunity to show off the actual product itself.
Yeah. There are ways of incorporating the product itself. So here are some thoughts about how to do this effectively. So first of all, no longer than 2 minutes, and do not put on one of those 1.5x or 2x speeds on your video. People have tried to do this in the past, to shovel stuff into that 2 minutes, but the judges often can't hear what you're saying. And often when you speak like this, your information lands better. You can hear that I'm slowing down to really stress some of the things I'm saying. Later, I'm going to challenge myself against Howard and all of you guys to actually prove that you can put a huge amount of content into those 2 minutes. The way you do that is scripting and preparing things really effectively. The last, sorry, Howard.
No, I'll let you go. Just with the final piece.
Yeah, sure. So there are different ways of doing this. So in the past, we've seen people do a selfie video with no background, just them or their team speaking. Other people have combined that with some slides, some images of a prototype. One guy from Manhole Metrics did a very cool thing. He was looking at how waste flows through London, and he was actually out on site in his high-vis jacket visiting different manholes and speaking to people across London, which really kind of brought that to life. But there is no right way other than there needs to be at least a portion of the video where you or a team member are pitching to camera. So this is not an advert, it's not a voiceover. The judges will want to see you on screen so they can see and learn who you are.
So just quickly, this is where I come in and I'm the really boring person with the some facts here. It says 2 minutes, it means 2 minutes. Your video will be cut, it just won't be accepted. 2 minutes is the maximum. And like I say, we'll give you all the tools, and what you can do is to make sure you can put as much information in there. We've had people think, oh, they won't mind, it's 2 minutes, 3 seconds. No, it's 2 minutes. It won't be, it's just not accepted. It's 2 minutes long video. I would hate people to fall out of the category just because it's a couple of seconds. And honestly, we've had to have it before. You will have had the information sent over that you can send the video across, and we'll go into some of the editing things shortly. But Ed and I have been in plenty of pitches, and we've seen people pitch for millions worth of pounds with a 2 minute video. Okay, so it is doable, and it is doable at this level and all the way throughout the startup and incubator sector. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. This short videos is used as a pitch. So please don't think, oh, I'll just go for some more. It's not. You just need to put it in. Okay. Yeah.
And so in terms of tools to record your pitch, everyone on this call will know Zoom. You can do a screen recording on Zoom pretty easily. An even more powerful tool is Loom, which lets you create all sorts of effects on screen. It can let you slice up your video, add emojis, all sorts of different stuff, and it will keep your kind of head, your profile, captured in the corner. So if you are speaking over slides or whatever, that will bring that out. And then the last tool that we really like is called Veed.io, which is a startup that actually came out through King's and have done crazily well. Just raised £20 million from Sequoia Capital, who one of the biggest VCs in the world. And they let you put on filters, subtitles, all sorts of really, really powerful effects. But whatever works for you. And sometimes the simplest stuff can be the best. What I would say, if you are going to use slides or PowerPoint, keep the information to a minimum on a slide. If you're using text, have one big, bold piece of information that, you know, London transport contributes to 200 million tons of CO2 emissions per year. And you put 200 million on that slide. By the way, all of my stats are made up today, so do not quote me. Or yesterday, at yesterday's workshop, we had someone looking at food sustainability and the importance of pollinators like bees. That person could have included just a big picture of a bee and said, this tiny insect can have a transformative impact on our food access and the price of that food. Simpler is the more impactful. Okay, so another question for you guys. What are some of the things you should think about when preparing your pitch? Stick your hand up, unmute, write in the chat. What are some of those things to think about when preparing your pitch? Yes, Jasmine, practicing a lot. Richard, thinking about who your audience is, for sure. We have some hands up.
Just come off mute. Yeah, if you want to say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just thinking pretty important is to think about the exact structure. So how you're going to start with the problem? Are you going to start with your solution? Are you going to start with a specific hook?
Yeah, definitely. Having a bit of structure around it. Randy, yes?
Making sure you know on a similar vein what you want to get in it, to make sure you've got like your USP, that the idea is really clear, and why this is a new innovative idea.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so coming back around that structure and kind of the elements and layers you can to bring it forward. Nice. Steph?
Yeah, I would say cutting out any jargon, making sure the words you use are understandable.
Yeah, so looking at that being accessible, kind of that granddad principle that was part of the application process, and using language that can really bring on and be aware of the audience. Yes, anything else?
This is key. You know, yeah. Complexity can actually have the inverse effect to what you might imagine. Sometimes we use these big words and buzzwords and complex words, and it can actually disengage your audience, because it might make me feel stupid if I was a judge. And that is a frustrating place to be. If I don't understand your idea, I engage less. So start simple, as if the audience, you know, like in the application form, were your grandparents. And then once you've explained simply, then you can go into more complexity. If you were selling a car, you say, look how beautiful and sleek and fast this car is. And then later, as you go deeper, you can say, you know, it has twin carburetors and it has this, you know, approach to steering or optimization of the calibration, whatever it might be. But you start at the high level, and especially with impact and benefits and vision. Okay. I think we had one last hand up somewhere.
I think it might have been a legacy one.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we're going to kind of reflect on some of these tips for preparing your pitch. You guys have really shared a lot of them already. The first is to consider your audience. So in this competition, what do you guys think your audience are looking for to meet the criteria of this competition? What is this competition all about?
Well, once again, a question, guys. Oh, Randy, yeah.
how what the problem is and how the solution affects people in London?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's specifically the London centricity of that problem.
Really needs to be included. Some people just go, oh, UK, 1 in 5 in the UK, and this is the London Mayor's Entrepreneurial Award, and it's very much around London. You can talk about potential scale and opportunity further on and later down the line, but please make sure you reference London and use your facts and statistics from a London-centric focus, because it's a competition for London. It sounds very simple. Once again, similar to 2 minutes, is just be aware of it, include it.
So, for example, if you're looking at loneliness in elderly population, you could say there are 15 million people over 65 across the UK. Much better is to say there are 2.3 million elderly people in London, of which 40% are impacted by loneliness. Okay. What else? Commercialization.
So, yeah, commercialization. Okay, so you want to expand on that at all?
Yeah, so I think it's great to have a good idea, but you need to show exactly how you're actually going to make a revenue in a sustainable way that's going to allow you to do that for a long period of time. So we need to explain exactly who you're selling to, how you're selling it to them, what are your costs like and your revenues like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's
Should Matt. Oh yeah, go on.
It's almost about, proving a level of commercial awareness. And this sometimes scares people. They say, I've never built a business before, or I don't have a bit background in economics or business studies, or I don't have an MBA. Do not worry. I have a music degree. I was not educated as a business person. You can make assumptions about these things that begin to prove your credibility. The last thing I would say about your audience is what can you assume and what can you not assume? These judges will be commercial people with experience in business. So let's say when it comes to commercialization, you can say we are a B2C model, or business to consumer. You can use the acronym. But what you can't assume is that they are experts in your product. So this is going back to the simplicity principle. Make it easy for them to understand. And lastly, in terms of your audience, think about what lands. And Howard and I use a quote that we like from Maya Angelou, which is, I've learned that people will forget what you said. They will forget what you did. They will never forget how you made them feel. What will make your pitch land with them so they go out into their evenings and rave to their partner, to their friends down the pub, whoever it might be, that they had felt something that really was meaningful. And actually here, this is about the power of storytelling. And we're going to explore that now. So, I'm going to just jump back into my slides. My laptop doesn't melt on me. So, unearthing your story. Who are you and why are you doing this? We really respond to individual stories. So, for example, to this case study of addressing loneliness in aging, I could say there are 2.3 million people over the age of 65 and 40% are impacted by depression. And that stat can play a really important part in my pitch. What can make that even more powerful is to say, my name is Ed, and I've spent 3 months speaking to people in care homes, and I found out something that really shocked me. Or I have direct experience of my grandmother, Joan, who suffered every day from the depression caused from her isolation from the world around. And she told me something that I will never forget. So what person have you met that brings your story to life? What have you spent time researching? What are you studying at your university? Who have you spoken to through this process of developing your ideas? And there is something, there's a really interesting piece of research around the paradox of large numbers. There was a study about the kind of empathetic responses to individuals impacted by a significant fire. They measured a readership's response to 100 people impacted by a fire versus the empathetic response to one individual impacted by a fire. Can you guess which of the two had the biggest emotive response in that readership? What do you reckon?
Yeah.
The one person.
Yeah, one person.
Exactly.
Second, it's gone.
Louise,
Okay.
in question.
Yeah, Ed. So the question is, if a project deals with taboo healthcare, I'm nervous about triggering it. It may sound crude if a quote from someone traumatized. Yeah, so when dealing with areas of taboo, it's still being able to frame it in a way and trying to make sure that you are pointing across. It could be hard. It's something we potentially look at later on with some of the script writing we're going to do in a bit. But it's being empathetic towards what you're discussing, but also those personalized areas really connect with people, and it's helping elevate a pitch to another level. If it's general statistics and terms where no one can really connect, is that unearthing story is huge. That's the hook at the beginning of a pitch. If someone can feel and be emotive, there might be that one person that could have traumatized it. It's going through that, and it's maybe finding the correct terminology and wording. At the moment, I don't know what the full project is, so I can't give any more about it, but it's potentially finding the way. If it's yourself or you have spoken to that person, I have uncovered while speaking to people issues that have been arisen. It's not necessarily saying Jane, Joan, Bob, they went through this issue. Gender-based violence, mental health. Yeah, it's a massive one around going for, but there will be ways you can do around it. I've discovered when speaking to 60 people that 70% of them have suffered gender-based violence, something around those lines of putting yourself in, and then it doesn't make it too personal around such a emotive topic.
So Louise, to sort of add to Howard's point, I think personal stories here can have an extraordinary impact on the audience. This is a very sensitive topic, and if you know of people who have been impacted, or if you've met directly, of course, anonymize them. But to be able to say, I met someone who had a devastating experience on their life, and this is what happened, and this is what I know for someone else in that situation that they would need to make sure that did not happen to them. I have spent time listening to that person, and I know something about them. So the statistics about how many people this impacts in London is part of it. But that individual story can be so emotive and so powerful for your audience. Okay, so related to that, the next piece of advice that we wanted to share is what we call the brain harpoon. And this is how you begin. How do you capture your audience's attention? So this might be your personal story, your motivation for doing what you're doing, or a killer stat. And it can be a combination of those things. And what we suggest is often a combination of a big stat, which gives you kind of quantified authority in your problem area, in combination with a personal story, can be a really, really powerful combination. So, for example, you could say 60% of children are at risk of long-term health conditions because of the impact of low-lying pollution across London. And only last week, I spoke to a parent who told me that they were terrified about their children's future because of the volume of pollution in the city. And this is what they told me. So you have a macro stat, and then you have a micro personal emotive story. So as we're going through these slides, begin to think about what that opening for you might be, bringing in evidence-based statistics and also your kind of personal, authentic story for why you're working on this. Next, to think about your pitch script. So this has come up already. You won't regret drafting and redrafting what you say, and especially when you have a time limit to stick within. Literally this morning, I had to record a pitch for a project that I'm working on, and I tried it several times without a script, and I kept going over the time limit. Then I scripted, refined, and I kept it within the 5 minutes that I was allocated. That script transformed my pitch. And in a moment, we're going to give you a template to use to help with your scripting. When thinking about your script, we like to start with headings. And because actually, across 2 minutes, most likely your audience will only remember about 3 to 5 key points. Let's say your story, the size of the problem, and why your product is so exciting, so new, so differentiated. And maybe it's also about your vision for the future. But you start with the things that are most fundamental, most exciting, and most impactful about your idea, and you can structure the rest of your pitch around that. So have a think about that. Equally, these headings, I would say when writing a script, do not write it, out in full, write it in bullet points. That lets you edit and restructure much, much more easily. Anything from you, Howard, to add at this point?
No, we'll talk more about the drafting and coming to the headings. It allows you to be clear and concise and build. And I think when we get through to you doing the demo ed of your around following and the key heads, it really highlights the importance of this and why it means that you can stay on track when delivering your pitch. And I'll say everyone has different styles, but definitely some format of script along with headings allows you to make sure that you're succinct enough and hit the 2 minute deadline.
Mm-hmm. Great. And related to that is something called the pyramid principle, which is where you start with one thought and then you expand into detail. Similar to my example of the car, you start with the headline. This car is beautiful, beautifully designed, sleek, and goes from 0 to 60 in only 4 seconds. Then you can go into more detail. What are the clever engineering or robotic or electronic designs within that car that make it so impressive. So it's a little bit like a book. You go from a title to chapters to headings, and then finally the body. Within this, there is a kind of rhetorical device that, for whatever reason, lands really well, which is the power of 3, or tricolon in technical terms. I came, I saw, I conquered. Information grouped in 3 is so powerful. So I have developed a breakthrough car with beautiful design and acceleration. It's special because of a new design of engine, a breakthrough material that is both robust and lightweight, and a smart internal control system that helps optimize my drive. For example, those 3 points help embellish upon that first concise thought. Any questions coming through, Howard, on the chat or hands up?
Nothing so far. So I think we're heading quite quickly to drafting scripts.
Cool. So question for you guys. What different sections or headings should you look to include in your pitch? Hands up,
I think
right in the chat.
just gives clues. Some of you started mentioning some of the areas around when we're talking around format. It's just what are some of the key elements you want to be including at this point. Problem solution, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Background, product, service, solution, definitely. Customer, so who you are serving. The vision for the future. USP, says Ariel, so what makes you stand out?
The hook, your customer's problem, your solution, market, content, traction. So traction is really interesting and really good one to include. We'll discuss it in a moment, but your credentials, your team, and a bit around the ask. Yeah, definitely. Why are you the right person to do this? Very much an important integral part of a pitch. Future prospects, great. Yeah, so, and then also one there that has been mentioned, impact, and bringing that is a really important part, especially relating when you're talking around why you are the answer, why your solution can have such a great impact on what it'll do. Yeah.
So to pull out some of these, because I think these are really, really interesting. First of all, traction. What does traction mean, and what proof points evidence traction? Interested in your perspective on this.
Jasmine's going with logistics. What do you mean with logistics there? I feel traction is what you.
Yes.
Okay, so
more specifically, Louis, what might that look like? What data points might that be? Prototype. Okay. Previous funding, a wait list of buyers, competitions, awards. Okay, Yannis. Evidence that proves some kind of product market fit.
Yeah. I think Richard then goes one step further. Customers engaged so far. So yeah, this is that real. It's the different levels you can get to and see. So that's people that have signed up onto a landing page, have shown interest. It's started to potentially might even be a revenue generation and say that X amount of customers are buying going from here. How many pilot studies are involved? It's that kind of that one step on from validation. Validation I've tested, I've seen, there's a load of data coming in, but now traction is I went and spoke to 10 people and 4 of them have signed up to use it on that first stage. It starts to indicate where you're going to and that there is real engagement in that and that customer market fit. But yeah, the customers engaged so far.
So this is a really important point, and it's almost a separate or additional conversation to this point about pitching. But as founders, I'm going to share my principles for you about what your goals should be in terms of traction. Traction is fundamentally, where are you going? What have you achieved in the direction of proving that your business will be successful? And what makes your business successful is customers who eventually will pay you money. And so what that means, as Howard said, if you can run a test or a landing page where 100 people come onto that landing page and 20 of them give you their email address, that is quantifiable evidence that you're moving in the direction of acquiring them as customers, or 20% conversion rate. And they've transacted in a way by giving you their email addresses. Okay, that is traction. That is quantifiable traction. Then the next stage of that might be 20% gave email addresses, and of those 20, actually 5, so 25% of them have actually bought off us. So we have 5% conversion from total people coming to the website to buying. We are beginning to really prove there is demand for what we're doing. A step before that might be that you spoke to people through your interviews or your surveys, 100 people again, and 40% said that they would bite our armor for this product to exist, right? This is all ways of evidencing. In other spaces, let's say, especially in kind of deep tech or engineering, product, manufacturing, you could say we have signed up customers for first meetings. We've had letters of intent, expressions of interest. We've set up pilots with potential partners. This is all evidence. On the flip side, what traction is not, in terms of getting on that direction towards validating your product, is winning awards. That might surprise you. Winning awards is amazing, and it proves that people are impressed by you in terms of your vision as an entrepreneur, and that's amazing. But it's not validating with your users, it's validating with judges. And it is not raising investment. In startup land, people pursue investment as a measure of success. Investment is a means to an end, but success is building a financially sustainable and scalable business. So that might surprise some of you. I'm interested in any thoughts, comments, on feedback of what I've just said, but I think it's a really important comment to make about building startups.
Oh yeah.
NDAs, NDAs are more like something that happens before you have the meeting to ensure that they don't, do anything with your idea. I often find NDAs are not necessarily that relevant or useful because the client often has, tons of legal fees, and they can blow you out of the water. So I would say not NDAs. Sophia talks about testimonials. I think this can be really powerful because you can say, we've also already evidenced that customers want our product because this is what a client said, that if this product existed, we could transform the efficiency of our business, right? That testimonial can be really powerful, even if it is more qualitative evidence. Omar.
Hi, Ed and Howard. So, this section, there's a very important question I had, and I actually wanted to ask this last year as well, but I didn't get the chance. So, and please be honest, as you guys have been so far. It's that, in a lot of these pitches and competitions, when, you're going through the different stages, like even with this one, we're told that, it doesn't matter if you've, just started this idea and you're towards the beginning of your sort of timeline, or if you're in the middle, or even if, there are some contestants who have won in the past who've had a lot of other funding, like, there was a prosthetic limb one that raised almost $1 million already beforehand.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. But for someone like myself who is at the very early stage, and I appreciate that investment isn't success, as you just said, it's about, being able to develop the idea that's, financially sustainable. But for some of us right at the start, that, this kind of investment, this kind of competition could be the exact jump we need to move forward. So, I guess my question is, have there been people in the past who, let's say, haven't had, lots of customers and so on, who have gone on to win from the beginning stage? And number two is, how can we sort of maximize that? Because I'm sure there are others in the room with me who are at that stage that I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Umar, this is really...
Sorry for the long question.
No, really important question. So yesterday we asked the group, so we did the same workshop in person yesterday, how many of them are at idea stage, and it's like 70%. So if you're at idea stage, breathe a sigh of relief. You're fine. You are fine. There have been tons of winners in the past who are at idea stage. In terms of this point of validation, Omar, I'll ask you, have you spoken to potential users?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Have you learned something from them that begins to prove that they need your solution?
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
So, it's to sort of get to the point. It's a platform that helps raise the aspirations and ambitions of students from deprived and disadvantaged backgrounds. And it started as a social enterprise, and now it's gone into tech and into that platform. And it's part of like the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition, and it's gone through a few different programs and such. But I haven't got like customers or anything like that. It's more sort of pilot schemes in the beginning stage. That's where it is.
Spoken to users.
Yeah.
And how have you evidenced that they want your solution to exist?
Oh, like through interviews and through survey feedback and things like that.
Okay, I'm going to ask again. How have they proven to you from those interviews that they want your product? I can give an example.
Please, yeah.
So we know that our users need this solution because we've spoken to 30 of them, and 65% said that they are desperate for something like this to exist.
Okay, yeah, because they're experiencing this problem. Okay, yeah, I see.
And that is at idea stage. That is validation. That is proof that they want you to be out in the world.
Okay, I understand.
Does that make sense? Any questions on this?
Thank you.
So Fergus, well-respected experts, not validation, but under team, that's a really powerful story to tell. So you could say, hey, I'm Fergus. an expert in this project that I'm working on based on my studies. And even better, I have a powerful network of expert advisors to help make this happen. So under the team section, that can be really powerful. I would say in this pitch, and going back to the traction thing, talking about endorsements, awards, investment does support your case. So you can say, we have already received recognition from SBRI or Innovate UK or the Greenwich Enterprise Award. That helps build credibility. So I'm not saying do not include that stuff. However, the bigger question about what it means, what success means as a startup, that validation point is proof from your users that they are desperate for you to exist. for when you do exist, that they are proving that they are using and paying for and buying and re-engaging with your idea. Any other questions or thoughts or feedback on this?
So it all makes sense to everyone, that idea of traction, how we build on it and go from there, yeah? Okay, brilliant.
So I also wanted to pick out...
Wait, we've just had another question. Do comments on TikToks or Insta count?
So social media can be a form of traction, but so the story you want to tell here, your audience is your potential user base. So you could say, we have grown from nothing a TikTok audience of, let's say, 2,000 followers in only 3 months, right? You are proving that these people want to find out more. Okay, so that is a kind of data point that you can use. So that is traction. I'm going to move on because just so we can manage time. Looking back at some of the other suggestions of what to include, some of you mentioned about the team and the ask. So the team can sometimes be confusing because, again, we asked the group yesterday, how many of you are solo founders? And most people were solo founders. And so when it comes to team, what it really means is you. Who you are, what do you know, what experience, what skills, what expertise do you have that will help make this possible? So my name's Ed, and I've been working in education for 15 years, and this is what I love. Even better, I have a team of advisors around me to help make this happen. That is a strong, effective way to prove credibility around the team. Okay. And then in terms of the ask, this is something that you might end your pitch with. And it can be really effective to invite your audience in. Human beings love to feel wanted. So you could say, with your help, with the support of the Mayor's Entrepreneur Award, imagine how the world could be different. We believe we could transform loneliness for elderly people, not just in London, but across the world, to give them happier, healthy lives in their last chapter of their lives. Invite them in, remind them how important their support is, and share a vision for the future with them before you finish. Makes sense?
I have one question about that, which
Sure.
is so I think in the ask it is quite good to give like the kind of emotional side of help us with make this a real thing. But sometimes is it useful to say something more specific, like this exact type of mentorship or this exact set of skill sets that we need to develop? Is that better, or should we keep it more on the emotional kind of story?
One of those questions that is more like on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
I'd try out a few different examples and get feedback. You know, it might be that you don't have enough time to be too specific at this point.
And
try out, you know, what your script looks like.
And also, just to remind at this time, this is the semi-final. We want you to put the best foot forward, but then there is a final that is it can become a lot more specific around what your ask is with the full package and go from there. So that emotional part at this point, like I had said, you might not have the time to include the detail that you want to, so don't get too bogged down in that at the time being. Just kind of put it on, and it will become a lot clearer in the when we start to draft some scripts.
Sure. So I'm going to pause here and move on to the next section, which is basically the format of sections that Howard and I suggest a good pitch contains. Before I show those, I want to note that some of those sections can be combined. and they can be moved around. So this is not a prescriptive chronological order, probably apart from the beginning and end, but this really helps as a basis for you to structure your pitch. Okay, so here goes. So here are 10 headings from that brain harpoon. Ooh, here they come. To your story, the problem, solution, how many people this affects, so the market. Why now, which I'll talk about in a moment. Competitive advantage, what makes you different from existing solutions. Business model, how you make money. Team and advisors, which we've just talked about. And then end with a bang, your vision. How could you change the world? How would this problem look different for people across London if and when it's successful? Okay. The point that we haven't talked about is why now? This sense of urgency can be really, really engaging. And it's also about underlying trends. So for example, if I set up a cryptocurrency exchange in 2012, it probably wouldn't have been very successful. But Coinbase was set up in 2016, 2017, right at the beginning of this uptick in interest in investing in cryptocurrencies. So they were on this upward trend. Equally, if I set up an edtech platform for at-home education for kids in 2018, it probably wouldn't have been so successful. In 2020, with the pandemic, there was this huge surge in interest or need for at-home learning. And so a lot of these platforms were wildly important. But the urgency can also be about bringing to life the problem. So for example, you can say, right now in 2023, there is a mental health crisis for elderly people across London. And if we don't fix this problem now, it will only get worse, affecting hundreds of thousands of elderly across the city. We have to act now. Listen up. We have to act. This is a crisis. That sense of urgency around this problem can be incredibly powerful. Does that all make sense? Anything on there? Ooh, I'll share my slides again. That we might have missed, or anything that's not clear or might be surprising? No? Okay. And how do you feel about fitting these sections into 2 minutes? Does it feel achievable? Does it feel like too much? Howard, do you want to check out the chat?
Yeah, chat's quiet, and this is what I was about to say is everyone, this is this back and forth. We're about to dive into some script writing, and it'll be a lot of back and forth, throwing ideas and potentially go on to practicing some pitches if we get time. So please ask the questions now so it makes the rest of the process quick and speedy and we all get the most out of it. So is there anything there jumping out? A lot of people talked about the urgency yesterday, potentially around how you frame Brain Harpoon. Quite a lot of content for a short amount of time. How would you advise fitting it all in? And I think this is teeing you up perfectly for the next part.
Okay, so I have drafted a pitch that I'm now going to try and pitch to you guys in less than 2 minutes, and Howard is going to time me and tell me when to kick off, and then you guys can give feedback on what you liked and what could be improved. So I'm nailing my colors to the mast here to try and prove to you guys how much you can fit into those 2 minutes. All right, Howard, let me know when I can get going.
Yeah, just 1 second. Is it possible to have text version of these headings to drop into a Word doc to start drafting?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
We'll add the slides, and we'll keep this on the screen when you start drafting in about 10 minutes time.
Okay, Ed. 3, 2, 1, go.
Aging and health. We think of Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes. But what if I told you that depression is now the #1 reported issue in over 75s? We're pals, and we're revolutionizing the way elderly keep in touch with loved ones by our smart, intuitive, affordable app. Across the UK, 3 million over 70s live in care homes, and 80% of these speak to their loved ones less than once a fortnight, resulting in a loneliness epidemic. Our app combines intuitive voice-activated UX, AI-powered scheduling, and friendly voice notes to keep users in regular touch with their loved ones while tracking their data for carers to look after their well-being. There is an urgent need for pals. Aging population in the UK is putting a strain on the NHS, and there are 12 million over 65s in the UK, and this market is worth almost 50 billion globally. We are the only solution on the market that combines intuitive design, data insights, and smart scheduling. It's a B2B2C model where care homes pay monthly between £100 and £850, and we're currently piloting with AXA Care Homes. We're an expert team of designers, entrepreneurs, and engineers with backgrounds in health, social care, and business to make this happen. And we're supported by advisors, including the MD of the UK's leading care home. We are pals, giving the elderly a smarter way to stay connected. Howard, how long was that?
We did better than yesterday in regards. It was 1 minute and 47 seconds. So you have 13 seconds spare.
Okay. I had
Right.
30 seconds to play with.
Yeah.
Thoughts, comments, what did you like? What could be improved?
Go on, Omar.
No, I think one of the best things you did is it didn't feel like you were in a rush or that you were running out of time. You spoke in a very relaxed tone. You were able to use your breath to add emphasis to, different statistics and points, which was great. And, highlighted that you had planned this before and you had practiced this before, not just tried to get everything in as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, brilliant. Felicia, if it was for this competition, it would need a lot more London data, and that would be really important to highlight how many older people are in London. You could go really specific. There is this amount, but in London, there's 1.2 elderly people within care homes and dealing with this issue of isolation. So really good point there, and that's how you go. But yeah, personalization, it would be nice to have an individual story, either about a potential customer or about you, what brought you to this topic. Absolutely, around that brain harpoon and making and unearthing the story. It could have said, oh, I've seen this problem within my family, or necessarily dealt with, oh, this is an issue that we saw with a friend of the family. Really trying to bring out that story of what connects you, or potentially how you discovered the problem, and go from there. Also, really an individual story. If you go back to the workshops when we were talking about this, it was like Joan's in a care home. She's been suffering with isolation. I met Joan 3 months ago, and since then we've looked at designing this product or co-designing this product with her and really bringing it out. Yeah. Anything else?
So we're going to pause in a moment. I just wanted to comment on a few things that could be better. For sure, the story. For sure, the London data. I specifically used UK and global data for this to kind of identify that. And in terms of differentiation, it was somewhat generic. Intuitive design, UX. As Howard says, elderly populations often don't use technology very much. So if we could say, we are the only app that have specifically co-designed this with our users to make it as intuitive as possible. We understand old people because we've spoken to them and we get it. And then the last thing is to think about what that vision could be. I ended with quite a generic tagline, but what could be different if this is successful? With this award, how could we transform lives? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that could be worked on, but I think the key things I was trying to get across is pace. It was slow. Tricolon, I came, I saw, I conquered, intuitive, sleek design, AI powered, those kind of things. And the fact that that script gave me a really strong platform to be able to, you know, practice and improve that pitch. Okay. So we are coming up to 10 past 11. At this point, I'm going to put up on the screen those different sections, and you can use them to start drafting your pitch. We're going to take a 5-minute break, go and get a drink, tea or coffee, whatever you need, but start using that time to start drafting. And then once, you know, you've had a bit of time there, so through to about 11:25, you will then go into breakout rooms and start practicing. And by the way, that first sketch of your pitch will be imperfect. You might even feel not happy with it at all, but don't worry. Even if you go out and practice with your groups, that first opening or the first story or some part of that pitch, that is valuable. Okay. So take the next 5 minutes, have a break, feel free to like turn your cameras off or whatever. And then we'll come back and you'll have a bit more time to start drafting. Francis, yeah, either both of you pitch or one of you pitch, whatever works best for you. We've seen both. So we want to hear from you. How was that? What did you learn from trialing out your pitch and getting feedback from people?
Is this where everyone goes shy after they've just pitched their idea? And any ideas, guys? You just talked to it. Yep.
Yeah, I think one thing is everyone seems to have a really good a start explanation of the problem, got the hook right, at least everyone. But then I think with the 2 minutes, it's quite hard for at least the people in our group to explain the idea to the point that everyone can actually understand it without going into detail, especially if it's a technical idea. So yeah. I think that's probably the hardest part.
Okay, one of the best ways to do this is practice and get people to give the idea, explain it to other people and see if they understand it, and focus on that 2 minutes and you'll be amazed at how quickly it comes down. I had someone that tried to explain something very complex. They tried to explain it to me for the very first time and it took over 5 minutes. After one day of just speaking to about 20 people, they got it down to 2 lines and it became succinct and made the same amount of sense. So practice, it's different people, and you'll be amazed at how much you can cut out and how much people do understand as well.
For sure. And start with the benefits, not how it works. It's important because it achieves 1, 2, 3. And this is how it works. It uses complex biotechnology or degradable materials or whatever. Start with the benefits. What else did you
learn? I found it helpful, this idea of picking just one element of the story. You know, if there's so many different aspects or angles from which it can be approached, different statistics about different things, but just to choose one particular aspect of your problem and to try and, well, I guess so much of this is about focus.
For sure. And all too often, in terms of ratios through the pitch, what we see is like 1 minute on the problem, 12 seconds on the solution, and then the rest of the pitch. And so picking and choosing the most important part of the problem and getting it to land, often with a pause at the end of the problem, and leaving enough time to really sell what you're doing clearly is kind of key to that focus. Richard.
I was curious about the possibility of delivering the pitch outside in a kind of off the cuff kind of way, and I hadn't really considered that actually could be distracting from the message, because it wouldn't really be adding anything to it contextually. I was just thinking it'd be more interesting than doing it in my home office, but perhaps the home office is a more controllable environment.
Howard, you shared a story about this yesterday.
Yeah, I definitely spoke to Richard about it. Is someone that was leading or the competition, had done everything excellent. Their submission was great with the internal award I was doing, and we asked them to submit a 3-minute video, and he filmed it outside. And for 3 minutes we just heard wind, and he got dropped from the competition. Even though it was a great idea, it didn't go through the next round, and he clearly hadn't watched his video back and found out it was quite clear immediately there was wind and you couldn't hear the audio. So learn-ons, if you're going outside, be aware of wind, but also the more important thing is watch your video back before you submit it. Show it to someone else. Make sure you haven't got your blinkers on. And this is something that I know Dan talks about. Do not wait until the final minute to submit. Make sure you've got it ready 2 days before. I know that shortens your time now, but look at the video, get someone else to check over it, and then you can submit it at 10 a.m. on that day, and you're good to go.